Building on the 3 kilometers agricultural belt we discussed earlier, the next logical step is the industrial belt. Agro-industrial parks where farms don't just grow crops, but feed factories. Imagine canneries, mills, textile plants, and processing centers standing shoulder to shoulder with farmlands, turning raw produce into finished goods right at the source. The government has already whispered about industrial hubs in Kano, Aba, Lagos, and Ogun State, but whispers aren't enough. What we need is bold expansion. Map every state's natural advantage, lock it into industrial clusters, attract global partners, and create the kind of scale that drives real economic transformation. Other countries have done it. Ethiopia pulled in world-class manufacturers with smart incentive and a clear plan. Nigeria can do the same, but with our own twist. Every hub ties directly to a polytechnic or a university, so that local youth becomes the lifeblood of the innovation. Aba should be our textile and footwear capital. Area market is already known as the Chinese town of Africa. The talent exists, the creativity is undeniable, but what is missing is structure. Global standard branding, strict quality control, and the kind of infrastructure that makes made in Aba sneakers as recognizable as Adidas. Nnewi has always been called the Japan of Africa for auto parts. The ecosystem is alive, but it is scattered, fragmented into small shops. Bring them together into an industrial park, link them to a shared supply chain, equip them with research and development labs, and suddenly you don't just have workshop, you have a national auto industry. Kaduna with its grain belt is a natural agro-industrial hub. Fertilizer plants, flour mills, packaging centers, and for heaven's sake, let's stop exporting raw cocoa like amateurs. Ghana figured out a long time ago that chocolate bars is more valuable than beans. And yet, we keep selling raw produce to third parties in the West like we don't know better. We own the value chain, but we have surrendered our power. That ends here.
Look, I want you to see my face in every episode, but I'm not going green screen in low resolution. If you like smart city story and have interest in film and urban development and want to help me make better videos, please subscribe, like, and share to folks that will be interested in this movement. If you have got a buck to spare, support me on Patreon or PayPal. Every bit gets me closer to showing up on camera the way this stuff deserve. The current goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers. Help me get there. You click, I film. Honest trade. Click the subscribe button now. Like, seriously. Now let's continue.
Then there's the Lagos and Ogun corridor, perfectly positioned with port, logistics, and density to become our electronics and assembly line powerhouse. Smartphones, solar panels, consumer electronics, clustering them here would create economy of scales, shared logistics, and innovative spillover. But here's the truth, our artisans, as brilliant as they are, lack tools. The difference between a master craftsman in Aba and one in Seoul isn't talent, it is access. Tech industrial parks filled with 3D printers, CNC machines, and robotics will level that playing field. And it is not only about government. The private sector can thrive in this space too. We should be initiating technology transfer programs with Japan, Germany, and South Korea. Countries that climbed the hard way, just like us. Pair that with the mandatory university-industry partnership, so that polytechnics and colleges churn out real R&D. Right now, the most memorable thing the University of Lagos ever created for me is bread and bottled water. That has to change. Innovation also collapses when supply chains are weak. You can't build a car if every bolt has to be imported from China. Nigeria must invest in a tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, nuts, bolts, plastics, circuit boards, and if we are thinking big, let's start laying the groundwork for a state-backed silicon chip fabrication plant. Whoever controls chips control the future. Companies that source more than 60% of their materials locally should get tax breaks. That is how you build a homegrown ecosystem. Of course, money is the elephant in the room. I've experienced it personally. I once applied for a Bank of Industry loan and got nothing. Meanwhile, I watched others access it with suspicious ease. So yes, it kinda works, but it reeks of favoritism. As president, I will rip that ecosystem apart and rebuild it. We need a real industrial development bank that serves everyone who meets the criteria. No nepotism, no backdoor dealings. Diaspora bonds must also come into play. Trust me, if Nigerians abroad saw rocket launching from Ondo State's untapped shoreline, they would pour money in. And that is not a joke. Ondo State shoreline could be our aerospace node, the Cape Canaveral of West Africa. Instead of agbada wearing uncles running our so-called space agencies, we could have engineers, rocket scientists, and builders turning that shoreline into a launch pad. A new space race is already on, and Nigeria cannot afford to sit it out. Tie aerospace manufacturing into our industrial belt, and suddenly we are not just catching up, we are competing. Government-backed venture capital must also support hardware startups, not just fintech pros. Mechanics, inventors, and builders deserve investment. And every industrial hub must run on dedicated renewable microgrids. No hub must be at the mercy of power distribution companies that can barely keep bulbs on. Tie hubs to road, rail, and port so goods flow seamlessly. Now let me get personal for a moment. During CWES, the Student Industrial Work Experience Scheme, we were promised stipends. Till today, I never saw mine. Some of my colleagues a year below me got theirs. Where did our money go? No one knows. That is the Nigerian story. Broken system, no accountability. As president, I would investigate that rot from the top to bottom. Because if you promise the youth and then cheat them, how do you expect them to believe in the system? Policies must back all of this. Made in Nigerian quotas should become the norm for government contracts, buses, uniforms, furnitures, softwares. Protect infant industries, but not forever. Put sunset clauses so they don't turn into lazy monopolies. Enforce strict quality standards so our goods compete globally. Review dormant zones like Ikeja Industrial Estate and Ajaokuta Steel Plant. Privatize them if we must, or hand them to development boards that actually deliver. Give SMEs cheap financing inside of these clusters so they can grow. It is not rocket science. Process what we grow, make what we use, build growth clusters inland, pull people out of congested megacities and into thriving new towns. This is how we build a self-sufficient Nigeria. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to build the factories that make the wheel. And then the next factory that make the Tesla it goes on to. If you believe in the vision, go back through the earlier episode for context. This series builds like Lego, piece by piece, until we are holding the blueprint of a new Nigeria.
This series isn't about doom and gloom. This is about solution. If I were president, what blueprint could we use to rebuild Nigeria? That is what the next 19 episode explores. From agriculture and energy to urban planning, justice, education, media, and foreign policy, we will be laying out how to rewire the nation piece by piece and make it not just survive but thrive. This is just the beginning, so if you want to see how Nigeria can change, not in theory but in practical and structured way, then you are in the right place. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notification. So best believe this is going to be a journey worth following.